I'm going to talk about success and creativity, achieving success through creativity. Let me start by asking you this question. What's the relationship between creativity and success? For me, it's simple. To achieve success, you have to work hard. You all agree with me. However, to kickstart success, you have to be creative. And this is very important. I'm going to share with you two personal success stories of my life to illustrate my point. Here we go. 15 years ago, I was a marine biologist. And I used to work in a huge marine aquaculture farm like this one, where there were hundreds of marine cages. These cages were made of rectangular frames with fish nets all around. And we simply put the fish in the cage, put the cage in the water, and let the fish grow. Simple. However, we had a problem. Problem was that seaweed would grow on those cage nets and block the water flow. And we had to find a solution. I came up with an interesting idea. I decided to transform this rectangular cage into a cylindrical cage that we will lay on its length, half submerged in water. We'll let the fish grow inside happily. And once the seaweed would grow on the cage below the water, we would simply rotate the cage, expose the seaweed to the sun. They would dry and fall off. Problem was solved, because the issue was that this seaweed would block the water and the fish would eventually die. This project was a real success. At 21 years old, I was invited at the International Symposium on Aquaculture in Florida, United States, to present my finding. I was the youngest scientist. And I don't think that I would have been that creative at this age. I don't think that I would have been that successful at this age if I hadn't been creative. Bottom line, creativity really kickstarts success. Now, if you're not yet convinced, I have another story for you. A bit different, a bit more recent. 7 years ago, I decided to become a lawyer. In Quebec, it's too cold to be a marine biologist at -40 outside. Just imagine. And I remember when I was a law student, I had so much to read. And I would forget about everything the next day because it was too much, except for some scribbles in my notes. I had this tendency of scribbling down my notes instead of writing them down. I had this artistic mind. And thanks to these scribbles, I was able to remember most of my legal concepts for exams, and I passed. And one day I thought, if I can scribble legal concepts on a piece of paper, why not draw those concepts on canvas? Well, that's how legal art was created. I created legal art. Legal art is simply art inspired by legal concepts. Well, let me show you a few examples because it sounds a bit crazy. I do paint legal concept. This is one of my paintings. Transystemia is kind of a complex name, but it simply shows that different legal systems. This painting shows that law is a game of power, and that different legal systems can exist on the same legal plane and the same playing card. Here you see the red book is the French Civil Code. We're in Quebec, we have both legal systems here. And the other hand, you have the stack of books, which is the English common law. And in Canada, in Quebec, both exist at the same time. Also, the interesting about this painting, there are lots of other elements inside, but I won't have time to go through all the details. But just the idea of the signature, I was thinking about this artwork when I finished. It was so hard for me to sign, because normally when you paint something, you sign below on the right. Then I say, if I do this, it would be as if this would be the upright, and I would give the civil code, because this is the red code. People will have a tendency of favoring the civil code. Then I say I would sign both ends, because I don't want to favor any legal system, and that's the justice, the way it works. At the end of the day, justice has to be done, whether you prefer civil law, the red little book, or the common law. So if you're a lawyer, you can put it any way you want, and that's what we do in Quebec. Both legal systems, we play with them. This is another artwork. This is called autoportrait. Artists normally at one point in their life, they paint their own portrait, And I thought, in the legal context, legal art, how would I paint my portrait? And I said, this is my legal portrait. This is the best way to present myself because the law recognized me first through my fingerprints, then my face. This is the better identity than my portrait. So this is my auto-portrait in the concept of legal art. So trying to be creative here. That's another artwork, totally different from the other. It's about a legal case, a well-known legal case, British legal case, 100 years ago. It's from this case, the carbolic smoke ball, that all the contracts we have today evolved from. It's about the company, pharmaceutical company, they created the smoke ball, which is kind of fakey with phenolic acid, and said that it would cure all these diseases and they would reward people £100 if ever they weren't cured. In fact, it was all fake. And one of the ladies sued this company and they had this poster that was the issue of the litigation. And I just kind of work on that and use that same poster and change this lady. There was an old Victorian lady, imagine 100 years ago, to a very contemporary lady, just to explain. The idea behind that is that law is evolving. And at the same time, having this recent contemporary lady on a very old poster reminds us that the same principles of legal contracts that existed 100 years ago are still relevant today. That's why this contemporary lady is in this century-old poster. Well, this gives you an idea of like 3 of my paintings. Yeah. So, as you can see, in these 2 stories I had, the legal art project, in fact, has been a real success. Not only I did this legal art paintings, but I created the Legal Art Gallery, which is an online art gallery where you can visualize all these artworks, comment on them in a kind of cool way, and learn about law by looking at artworks. And also, I had written a book about transforming law into art and about the creative process behind. And I also coach professionals how to be more creative at work by merging left brain analytical thinking with right brain artistic thinking or right brain imagination to be more creative. This project, again, as you see, has been a real success. And not only this one, but the marine cage also. And for me, thanks to one element for these 2 projects. It's, anybody guess? It's creativity, obviously. I mean, for me. But you know what? I'm not here today simply to tell you that creativity is important for success, because you've probably heard about that before. I'm here to tell you something else. I'm here to share my secret how to be creatively successful. And my secret is analogical thinking. Yes. Analogical thinking, for me, is about connecting things that at first sight seem to have nothing in common and come up with something new. Like connecting law and art. There's nothing in common and come up with legal art. Or connecting marine biology and plastic pipes to come up with a new cage prototype in a scientific experiment. Why plastic pipe? Because the idea of the cylindrical cage that I showed you before came up in my mind one day while I was having fun crafting with plastic pipe. And this has nothing to do with my job. That's how the idea came from. All this might sound a bit crazy, analogical thinking, but I'm not the only one using analogical thinking to be creative. Steve Jobs would connect calligraphy to computing to create beautiful typography for the first Mac. Gaudi, the famous architect, would study nature and biological structures to build architectural marvels. Shakespeare would not only use analogies, but metaphor in enriching his own writings. And, I mean, the analogical thinking is the essence for me. And analogical thinking is everywhere. And analogical connections is everywhere. Also, you have to look for them. And one thing that you have to remember from this talk, and I'm going to conclude on this, is that the more you train your brain to think analogically, the easier it would be for you to see links and connections everywhere that you're going to use in your own business to be creative. And this is my secret, and it's very important. I'm going to repeat it for you. So because it's long, the more you train your brain to think analogically, the easier it would be for you to see links and connections everywhere that you're going to use in your business and also in your work to be creatively successful. And this is an idea worth sharing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks.